with support for Planet Zoo coming at least close to an end, if it hasn't already come to an end, we're going to love to speculate on what Planet Zoo 2 might include as new features to the game. And a lot of them have been suggested by the community, but I want to bring my top 5 things that aren't even animal related in regards to new species into Planet Zoo 2. What changes do I think need to be made? If for those who do not know, I'm Greyhammer. I do a lot of content here on Planet Zoo, doing builds, live streams, and speculation videos on Planet Zoo. So let's get straight into with number 5, what needs to be fixed. And that's optimization and bug fixes. Now, you'll first off note that my slides are very, very bare bones, and that's because I want to just really focus on the complete meat of what really needs to be updated here. Don't need to add a bunch of pictures to keep y'all's attention. I believe y'all can keep watching to the end of the video, and please do so. But a lot of bugs are still in the game, especially in franchise mode, causing breaking the climbing traversable area. Sometimes just animals will no longer recognize that they have climbing or deep diving areas. This happens quite frequently, and it would be nice to not have those issues in the game. Market as well sometimes won't refresh, meaning it's impossible to get new species without relogging into the game. And relogging is no fun. So really just some bug fixes like that. I'm sure there's others that I've not mentioned here, but those are 2 that just affect me as someone who really likes to play franchise. Those are very frustrating. Also on optimization, Planet Zoo's a pretty demanding game on the PC, and especially towards the later game, as you've actually built up your zoo. And so it limits the player base and complexity of builds and zoos to only people who have good computers. So better optimization fixes that I could think of is that when you have large amounts of guests, it will just group, like, it in Planet Zoo already, guests come in as a group. And so a way to make that even better is go ahead and make that group into just one guest. So it will limit, you'll still have the same number of guests in regards to how much money they're paying to the zoo, but it's only represented in animations by this one guest. That would be an optimization fix I think would work pretty well. And then just the fact that Planet Zoo is also now almost 6 years old, so I think a newer game engine might fix a lot of those optimization problems as well. And you may not need a supercomputer or a computer that has the chance to explode at any moment to play Planet Zoo. So that's point number 5. The first 4 points are going to be rather short. It's the last one that's going to be significantly more in depth. But this is terrain brushes, and I think Prehistoric Kingdoms really advanced everyone's assumptions of what terrain brushes can be. So one of the things is that Planet Zoo has a super high skill ceiling. I mean, you're placing down lots of stuff to intricately get everything into the right position. One reason of that is the time needed to get nice looking habitats. Games like Planet Coaster 2, Jurassic World Evolution 3, and Prehistoric Kingdom use terrain brushes to allow player to create quick and easy environments, while also having a lot of customization. All of those games also have individual tree placement, and so those are really strong tools that allow you to create realistic looking habitats really quickly, and then to customize those later. So something from Planet Zoo that would be cool would be like biome ecotope brushes based on different regions that can serve as education to the player as a way to make more realistic environments. Instead of just having a tropical biome, you could have like a tropical monsoon forest, a tropical montane forest, things like that. So it would be really cool to see different ecoregions represented in the terrain brush. And yeah, would be quite nice. Another thing that kind of gets wrapped into this, I'd like to see more specifics on where plants are from, because a lot of the times a plant will be from let's say it's only native to Tasmania, but it's just included in Oceania in the game. Obviously, when you're trying to represent Tasmania, then you just want the plants from Tasmania and not the ones from Australia proper or from Papua New Guinea or New Zealand. So, something like that where you can limit it to not even necessarily country all the time, because Tasmania is part of Australia, but different regions in the country if possible. Definitely would have to figure out how they could implement that in a nice way. That isn't hundreds and hundreds of options. But that's it for terrain brushes. Let's get into animation fixes. And despite Planet Zoo having some really amazing animal models, those animations do often leave a lot to be desired, with jumping often looking incredibly floating and having lacking really the impulse. This is especially true with cats, which really have those dynamic pounces that it's really quick, really you can feel the power in those moves, but in Planet Zoo, it looks like they're just flying through the air, defying gravity and having no parabolic motion. Climbing often involves animals phasing through objects and often not turning fluidly if you've got one that turns around. And then large hitboxes block more interesting climbing frame options and backstage areas. So making those hitboxes match with the animal model more. It's not necessarily an animation fix, but I think it would fix a lot of issues with animations. And with a newer game engine and with having made a lot of money from Planet Zoo, one would really hope that they'd invest a lot more on improving the animations. That they've already got the base models pretty good on most of the animals. So they can really focus in on making sure that those animals interact with the game very smoothly. And this is a great moment to say, if you've been enjoying this video so far, before we move into the final 2 points, go ahead and like this video. It really helps out. And if you like these kinds of videos, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. We will be doing a lot more of this kind of video in the future, if I'd have to guess. And leave in the comments different ones you'd like to see implemented into Planet Zoo 2. And tell me some bits about how you'd like that implemented. So, point number 2, this is the second most important one, and I think it's franchise fate, because I say this as a big fan of franchise, but franchise is unfortunately one of the most frustrating game modes. It does, however, have the potential to be the most rewarding. I think the economy needs a complete rework in Planet Zoo, because as it is, there's 1 to 2 paths you can go to make your franchise zoo successful, and if you don't do that, it's going to be an upward struggle for ever. So I'd like to see different financial events and more management, things like investing with your zoo, in bank accounts, in stocks, or whatever. And we want to make sure that those butterfly farms aren't the only way to start your zoo. Exhibits should not be the be all end all for economy in Planet Zoo. So I think much more interesting economy. They can look into other games that have economies that really make more sense. I think improving ways to get conservation credits. I don't think releasing into the wild or selling an animal on the market should be the only way you get conservation credits. I think you should be rewarded for things like guest education and other things like maybe having recycling bins. That's what I thought for the longest time, was having recycling bins would increase your conservation credits. Another thing could be cool is franchise is all about having those other players. So maybe you could set up trades with animals to be like, hey, let's. I need a female jaguar because I have a male jaguar. Let's breed these 2 species and then grants a conservation buff as you're loaning out your animals. A really designed infrastructure, making buildings like warehouses and backstage areas actually useful. That's one of the things that I think is probably less needed than these other ones. I like the idea from Planet Zoo where or from Prehistoric Kingdom where you like order in supplies and things. I think Prehistoric Kingdom has it in a very rough version that needs a lot of work. But I like the general idea, and I think Planet Zoo could really do it well. And I'd love to see backstage areas become actually useful, where you can have like holding zones for animals if they're you're separating the male and female, or if guests or sorry, if keepers need to get into an enclosure, I'd love to see them move tigers into a backstage area so that they can get to the exhibit in full. I think that's a little unrealistic for Frontier to actually do, but I would love to see it. Point number 5 is going to be the longest one, I'm sorry, and but we're going to get through it. And that's engagement. And the problem is, this has been brought up a lot by Leaf in the community, and I think he's right on, is that once you've built your zoo, there's not a lot you can actually do in your zoo besides walking around it. So staff mini games. Sorry, my dogs went a little crazy there. From Zoo Tycoon 2 and Jurassic World Evolution allow players to actually engage with their park, and you can break down into what type of staff the player can emulate. I did spelled roles wrong here, but roles can be picked during the Explore Camera mode by clicking space on relevant staff buildings. So this is my idea of how we can make some interesting things of where you can actually do a day in the life of the zookeepers or whatever. So, keepers. When you take on the keeper role at the keeper hut, the player can prepare food and clean exhibits. I think this would be fun, is that preparing food can be an event that relies on balancing the diet of the animals in your game. You'd add meat, plants, maybe both, and things like kibble to maintain nutritious and enriching meals. So varying those meals each time could be fun. You could have a schedule, something to just improve that engagement, and that would give a boost to animal welfare. Maybe a small enrichment boost if you're changing up their food each day or year or whatever. Planet Zoo. And cleaning exhibits yourself involves moving to dirty areas, clicking spacebar, which eliminates the disease risk, and giving a small conservation credit boost if there's a composter, maybe, or just a financial boost, as zoos often do sell their compost to farmers. Veterinarians, when taking on the vet role, you'll be able to research animals and administer treatment. Researching can maybe look at taking pictures of animals performing different behaviors, such as climbing, swimming, using enrichment items to gain a slight boost in research progress. So, similar to Jurassic World Evolution, where you can kind of take pictures of the dinosaurs to get money, this would be taking pictures of the animals doing different behaviors to grant research progress. And then during the treatment of those injuries and diseases, the player can perform quick time events or select different medications or bandages that can be highlighted depending on the progress of those veterinary research on that ailment. So like if it's avian flu, then you'll have a few different like vaccines or treatment options that, based off of your research on the avian flu and that animal, you'd have those highlighted maybe. Or it could just be a quick time where you're just clicking buttons, similar to Zoo Tycoon 2, where you were just clicking the arrow keys. That's probably an easier way to implement it. As for the mechanic, this is where I'm a little bit less sure on the mechanic one, but repairing vandalized items and fences is pretty similar to the Zookeeper, but also mechanic research. That's the one I'm going to need y'all's feedback on. To repair utilities, fences, and other facilities, you can press spacebar to begin repairing, and then completing some quick time events to repair faster or cheaper. And then for mechanic research, maybe you can research different materials by visiting other players' franchise zoos, or inspecting materials around your zoo that will grant you progress on your mechanics research. This could be a fun way for to get you to visit other people's zoos. And with expanded workshop coming in Jurassic World Evolution 3, it should be easier than ever with implementing that into Planet Zoo 2. The Caretaker is pretty easy. You're going to be able to clean litter, replace trash, and recycling bins. It's going to increase the guest happiness more as they see like the owner is actually going and cleaning, and can help lighten the workload on staff. Nice and easy one here. If you've got any other suggestions for the caretaker role, let me know. Educator is one that I think would be fun, and probably the hardest role to take on as the player. You're going to be able to give animal tours and keeper talks. And I think during the talks, players can kind of construct a talk using, like, you get an in-game clipboard and you can drag and drop facts and onto that clipboard that will play during the animal talk, giving a more educational value based off how those interact. And you could maybe have even some animal behaviors that you drag onto that clipboard, because during those educational talks a lot you'll have trained behaviors with the animals, usually medical related, and so you could like have the lion put its paw against the chain link fence, and that during that you may talk about either veterinary stuff at the zoo, or you could talk about how lions use their claws. Something like that could be interesting. I'm not exactly sure how that would go, though. On tours, though, it's a little bit more straightforward. I'd imagine that when you're giving a tour of the zoo, guests would probably ask questions. So a little dialogue would pop up, and the answers would come from the Zoopedia. So you'd really want to read up on your Zoopedia, and when you're doing these tours, make sure you can actually answer those questions, and that will give a boost to guest education. Security guard, they're definitely expanding on this in Jurassic World Evolution 3. So you could view like security cameras to identify crime for other guards or actively patrol the zoo. While viewing those security cameras, you can report crimes you see from the cameras, and does improve guest happiness as they see that crime is being stopped quickly. While patrolling, you could even chase down and apprehend criminal guests, perhaps even having some security vehicles like segways or ATVs, depending on how the size of your zoo, and that's again going to boost your guest happiness. And the last role you can take on is the vendor. You're going to man kiosks and restaurants, and you're going to take orders from guests. It's basically fast food simulator. Guests will place an order, and happiness of guests will increase based off the speed you collect. You click on the correct options of what they ordered, and that will mean that they'll be more willing to donate money to the zoo. Something like that. I'm not really sure how else you would implement that on the vendor. Let me know in the comments. Those are the 5 things on Planet Zoo that I think would be really nice to really improve, especially franchise mode, but the game in general. Give you some more interesting things to do in the game, and just kind of fix the game a little bit on some of the issues in it. Go ahead and let me know in the comments below what you thought of these 5 different changes, even though number 5 was a massive change. Let me know if you think it's realistic for Frontier to implement some of these. I think they could in some way at least, though I don't know that they would go into this much detail. And again, go ahead and please like this video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more Planet Zoo videos. Until next time, I'll see you later. Bye, guys.